David Lyle here with Popular Woodworking Magazine. I had an opportunity to visit Kerry Pierce in his home shop a few weeks ago now, and it was amazing the beautiful furniture that he can make in his relatively small shop. We toured his hand plane collection and his power tools, and I just wanted to share that with all of you in this video coming up. Kerry, it's great to be in your shop, and we just walked into your machine room, and I'm struck by all of the Craftsman. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
You are correct. It is all Craftsman. When I started making furniture, gee, this was back in the late 70s, I had very little money. So the first machines I bought were consumer grade machines, Craftsman. It's a brand that my dad had used fairly frequently in his cabinet making career. And I knew that Craftsman tools functioned. You know, basically woodworking tools just need to rotate blades or work.
Yeah.
And you don't need a $20,000 table saw to rotate a blade. You know, you can rotate a blade in a table saw you pay $300 or $400 for.
That is true.
So if you look at my wood processing machinery, you know, my planer, my joiner, my table saw are all Craftsman.
There's no helical head on here.
No, there's not. This is old style. Yeah. And this stuff works.
Sure.
Maybe I couldn't process material on an industrial scale, but I never processed more than 100 board feet at a time. And I can come out here in a couple hours and do what I need to do on this equipment.
Sure. And that seems almost a function of, you know, what kind of furniture you're making. And it seems your shop has been scaled to do that kind of work. Is that intentional?
That's true, but I think it's even more a function of economics. I think even if I built large pieces, my inclination would be to work with inexpensive machinery that I've modified, like the modifications I did on my lathe. You know, if I were building with big sheet goods, I'd put this table saw in a great big wooden structure that I'd built, so I would have, you know, surfaces to catch rips and cutoffs and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to spend $10,000 on a table saw.
Yeah.
You just need something to spin that blade around.
There's plenty of merit to that, and with a plane collection like you have, there's no issue finishing it up.
I think that's the way I've chosen to spend my money too, and that's another issue. It's not just economics.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years or 20 years, I could have afforded better machinery, but I'd rather put the money in hand tools.
Sure.
I think those planes they're not just tools, they're pieces of functional sculpture that give me an aesthetic satisfaction that I will never get from a table saw.
Right, right.
You know.
So Kerry, this is an interesting shop. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have going on in here? About your workflow? Well,
I wanted a small space that I could heat and air condition relatively easily. So this is insulated up and down. Unfortunately, the concrete block walls here and here are not insulated. And I've always been a one-man shop. When my daughter was in high school, she worked for me some. She'd do some lathe sanding and other things like that on the chairs I was making, but otherwise it's just been me. So I don't need space. And that inclination to be small has been extended, I think, to my benches. Most shops you're going to find one, you know, really grand bench, usually made out of maple that's several inches thick with some big expensive vices on them. I have several small benches. This one is built around a $75 bench screw, but it will open to 15 inches. And then I've got a little side vise here that I picked up for, I don't know, $20 at an antique show. But this bench gives me one location in my shop where I can be working on one part of a piece while I can be working on something else at another bench.
Yeah.
Now this particular bench here, I got my grinder, I got my diamond stones here, I sharpen here, and then on that side I've got my shooting boards for miter work. And then this is an odd little thing here, which I have found to be really useful. When you're working on parts, small parts, sometimes you want to raise them up right almost to your face level so you can really look at them. And this post allows me to raise them higher than, you know, regular bench level. It looks goofy, but I found so many different uses for it over the past 10 or 15 years.
It's just sitting in your vise there?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Well, and you have dueling miters here. What is this setup?
In my business, I'm fortunate enough to be offered a lot of planes to test drive. And this is a Veritas miter plane. And this is, of course, the the Lee-Nielsen number 9. And I've got them set up, one to do left-handed miters and the other to do right-handed miters. And it's nice to have the shooting board set up this way. You know, if I were going to flip this to the other side, I have to take the handle off and put it on the other side. This arrangement works well for me.
Nice. Nice. Back to this bench. What are these registration points for?
Well, when I started building furniture seriously, I built almost exclusively post-and-run chairs.
Okay.
Many of them were shaker reproductions. Others were chairs I designed.
Okay.
In working on narrow benches, one of the things you find is that as you're working on those chairs, the legs have a tendency to slide off. So I built these two pieces here. Well, I didn't build them. All I did was drill 2 holes in them. And I put the legs of my chairs there, and that keeps them in place as I work on the chairs.
And you just drilled right into your top.
Yes.
It's a workbench. That's what it's for, I guess.
Well, you know, this is just these are just 2x4s.
Yeah.
And if the bench gets really bad, I can replace the 2x4s. But as an interim correction, I can just take a hand plane and I can plane that surface flat again.
Sure. And they're actually sitting flat on their face.
Yeah,
they're not.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to laminate them.
Yeah, it's just flat stuff.
Yeah, nice.
This bench, together with the vices, probably costs less than $250. And I hate to say this, but I've seen catalogs where benches are sold for $1,500 or more.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
And they're so heavy. If you need to move things around your shop to you know, meet the needs of a particular project, you got a bench that size, you can't move it very easily.
Yeah, and you're sitting pretty sturdy here.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, I don't know if you can see it down on this end, I've got a little piece of L hardware.
Sure.
If I'm doing plane work on it, I'll actually screw that to the floor.
Okay.
So the bench doesn't slide as I work on it.
Great. Well, here, can you tell me a little bit about your lathe? It's you got some customization going on here.
You're not kidding. And this is what happens when you're poor, when you don't have a lot of money. When I started making chairs back in the early to mid 80s, I can't remember when exactly, I didn't have much money. I was a school teacher working in a rural district, and I'd be embarrassed to tell you what I was making per year. I wanted to make chairs, and of course chairs require the ability to turn a back post that is often 45, 46, 47 inches long. And consumer grade lathes only have 36 inches between centers.
Sure. I
looked at lathes that could accommodate more distances, and I found that the prices were $1,500, $2,000, and this was back in the early 80s. You know, I hate to think what they'd be today. So what I did is I bought the Sears lathe for $220. I bought an extra mounting foot for this tubular bed. I had that welded onto the end here, and that gives me a lathe of theoretically infinite distance between centers. You know, all I need is a longer board to mount it
so you can just move this whole part.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And then, because I've made so many chairs that require so much turning, I got tired of moving the tool rest up and down the tubular bed. So I made a series of length of part tool rests that I use so I can you know, work the whole length of a chair spindle
Sure.
without having to move that tool rest from location to location.
Outstanding.
And here's another thing that results from not being rich and also from being self-taught. This is my complete turning kit.
No kidding.
Everything I do with these 4 tools. And if you're in the shop of guys who are better turners than I am, you'll see an array of really high-priced tools.
Yeah.
I've got 2 good tools, my roughing gouge and this little fingernail gouge.
Yeah.
This was a flea market pickup, and this was
Look
just a little
it.
butt chisel I reground.
Can I? Yeah, look at this.
But with these tools, I think I can turn just about anything. You know, and spindle turning, bowl turning, I think would be a different experience.
Sure.
you know.
Sure. Very good.